Navy base in Pensacola. The groundings were part of what a Navy official called a safety stand-down and operational pause. It is the season for upsets in college basketball. For the third time this season, the top team in the country was knocked off by an underdog. This time, it was Louisville who fell to unranked Texas Tech. The Cardinals got within 4 points in the second half, but in the end, the Red Raiders would run away with it. They won the ballgame 70-57. Dom, back to you.
Two Kentucky teams falling in just the first part of this year. Philip Mena, thank you very much for that. Well, President Trump is bashing the articles of impeachment filed against him yesterday, calling them flimsy, pathetic, and ridiculous. NBC's Tracy Potts joins us now from Washington, D.C. with the latest from what we can expect next. Good morning, Tracy.
Hi, Dom. Good morning, everyone. Expect debate tonight and a couple of votes coming up in the House. The president giving his defense at a rally last night, calling this impeachment light, realizing that Democrats are in control of the House where impeachment happens. President Trump rallying overnight in Pennsylvania, unleashing on Democrats.
What happened? All of these horrible things, remember? Bribery and this and that. Where are they? This is impeachment light, because they want to win an election.
Republicans believe impeachment is dead in the water in the Senate.
I said I would be totally surprised if there were 67 senators to remove the president.
Impeachment moves forward with debate tonight and a committee vote tomorrow.
This reflects that this is a crime spree in progress, and that moves us to act with urgency.
Democrats accusing the president of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress for pushing Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden.
Nobody push it.
Freezing the country's aid and refusing to let White House staff testify about it.
We must be clear. No one, not even the president, is above the law.
The evidence of the president's misconduct is overwhelming and uncontested.
Anticipating the president will be impeached next week, Senate Republicans want to move quickly.
I have no desire to make it a long trial. So I'm looking for 51 people to join me to say we've heard enough, we're ready to vote.
Stupid impeachment.
But the president wants time to call witnesses to make his case. That trial in the Senate is already being planned for January. Tom?
Tracy Potts live in Washington, D.C. with the latest on the impeachment inquiry. Thank you very much for those details. When we come back on the show, why our next guest says don't look to the USMCA as a blueprint for any potential trade deal with China. Plus, a warning of retail Armageddon. Yes, Armageddon, if those December 15th tariffs go into effect. All of that and more when Worldwide Exchange rolls on after this commercial break.
Do you have
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. We dropped off our Christmas shopping at the hotel. Then it was off to be spellbound at the Theatre Royal Bath. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop, not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery's running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6s with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk. This week at Tesco, buy 2 items from our chilled party food range, like tempura prawns or mozzarella sticks, and get a third one free. So for every 2 people you invite, you can ask another for free. But who? Linda from Accounts or Julio from Magaluf 2010. Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Cheapest item free, selected stores while stocks last, ends 1st of January.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Investors are hopeful following reports that the U.S. and China have striked a tariffs truce. We're also watching the Fed, awaiting its latest policy decision. Former Dallas Fed President Richard Fisher will join us live. And the Yankees smashing records with its reported contract for star pitcher Garrett Cole. We are just getting warmed up here on Worldwide Exchange, and it rolls on right now. NBC, I'm Dominic Chu in for Brian Sullivan this morning. Here's how stock futures are looking halfway through the 5 a.m. Eastern Time hour. As you can see, it's pretty much a holding pattern for many traders out there. If these futures moves hold into the opening bell, you could expect to see the Dow rise by just about 9 points, the S&P up by about 2 points, and the NASDAQ by about 10. So very much, again, a holding pattern ahead of that big Fed meeting later on today. Now, Treasury yields also moving just ever so slightly. The benchmark U.S. 10-year government note yield, 1.816% there. The last trade for the 2-year government note yield, 1.636%. Well, top officials from Canada, Mexico, and the United States signing a fresh overhaul yesterday of the near 25-year-old NAFTA trade pact dubbed the USMCA. But our next guest says when it comes to dealing with China, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi signaling the deal could be up for a vote in the House as soon as next week. The USMCA is anything but a blueprint for those negotiations. Joining us now from Washington, D.C., former Assistant U.S. Trade Representative for China Affairs, currently the president of the China Moon Strategies Company, Jeff Moon. And Jeff, good morning to you. Thank you very much for being here. Let's talk about how important USMCA is to the economy of the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and what it means for those negotiations with China going forward.
Well, fundamentally, when you look at the two agreements, they're very different in their scope and their nature. The USMCA is an update of an agreement that's been in place for 25 years already. It's an agreement between allies, all of which are market economies. In the case of the U.S.-China negotiation, things are quite different. The U.S. and China are talking about fundamentally restructuring their trading relationship as it has evolved over the last 2 or 3 decades. They are not allies, and China is not a market economy. And the fact that China promised to become a market economy when it entered the WTO and has not done so is the fundamental reason why we are in this trade dispute to begin with. So the key issues in the trade dispute, things like subsidies, forced technology transfer, other state-led policies that fundamentally disadvantage foreign companies, those factors are not at play in USMCA. So that's why I think that USMCA will be passed, and we will be hearing a lot about that from President Trump during the presidential campaign season. And we probably will get a phase 1 agreement in the coming weeks, or maybe even sooner than that, but that we won't get a phase 2 deal because the issues are so tough.
I mean, given the adversarial relationship that China and the U.S. have, not just on trade, but many other fronts as well, is there an expectation, just big picture long term, that these two countries, us in America and China, can actually come to some kind of a mutually beneficial, large arching kind of trade agreement that sets us up for the next, say, 10, 20, 30 years?
I think that the past few months tell us that on narrow issues where the interests are fundamentally aligned, in this case we have, say, agriculture and reducing some tariffs, we can reach agreement. But China has resolutely resisted any kind of fundamental restructuring of the arrangement. For example, subsidies. While we've been talking about these issues during the trade war, China has been doubling down and has been creating new giant investment funds to subsidize sectors like semiconductors and other areas of priority for them. So I'm not that optimistic that we can reach that kind of long-term overarching agreement in the near term.
So let's talk a little bit about how you mentioned the president and you mentioned the narrative that will have to be kind of told to the voting, to the electorate, to the public in 2020. What exactly can the trade deals that are in progress and have been done, USMCA and the China perhaps phase 1 deal, what stories need to be emphasized from the administration, and what does the administration still need to work on with regard to getting some kind of a bigger deal done?
Well, with regard to MCA, I think the president's going to talk about the benefits to workers, greater auto content, for example, in the United States. And there are various advantages to USMCA that were included in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which President Trump pulled us out from. For example, intellectual property was part of USMCA, of the TPP. And so that's part of the narrative. I think in terms of the China negotiations, we are going to reach a phase 1 agreement on tariffs and agriculture, and that's what we're going to be hearing about. The president is going to be going to farm states and talking about the sales that are going to be forthcoming beyond that. But the deeper structural issues, I think, will not get addressed, and I think the president is going to try to find a way to avoid discussing those issues because with regard to those issues, I don't think that he's going to be able to resolve them anytime soon.
All right, former Assistant U.S. Trade Representative Jeff Moon, thank you very much for those thoughts this morning.
Thank you.
Well, sticking with trade and that December 15th tariff deadline, we now turn to retail and the potential impact new levies on $165 billion worth of Chinese imports and goods could have on the sector and the consumer. Joining me now is Rick Helfenbein, President and CEO of the American Apparel and Footwear Association. Rick, you are a trade association representing apparel makers and shoe makers. How important is the U.S.-China trade negotiation for that industry?
Oh, it's everything to us. You know, I love your countdown clock. We are 90 hours away from hitting an iceberg, and it's not a pretty iceberg. We as a group are particularly concerned, because we don't have profit margins to sustain a 15% tariff, and it's not just the December 15 tariffs that we're concerned about. It's the September 1 tariffs that we were hit with. 92% of all apparel was hit on September 1. 53% of all footwear coming from China was hit on September 1. You know, in terms of retail this holiday season has been great, but you have to ask yourself, are we going to make any money? If we're lucky, we make 5%. You're going to take 15% out of our operating accounts. That's not going to bode very well. And we're really, really worried, and we're not 100% convinced that, the countdown clock's going to work in our favor.
Well, Rick, let me just ask you this. There have been the folks out there, maybe some economists, maybe some kind of analysts out there, who say that the U.S. consumer is healthy, that the U.S. consumer would be able to absorb possible price hikes given a situation if it were to lead to a better trade situation with China down the line. So how exactly does the industry fare on that front? Do you think that we can, as an industry overall, pass on some of these price hikes to our consumers, and will those consumers be strong enough to pick up the slack?
Well, I give the American consumer a lot of credit. 58% of America went shopping over the last 5 days. It's 190 million people hit the stores. 2 million more people are in the workforce. People are shopping, they're spending money, but it's competitive out there. And to be perfectly honest, we front-loaded a lot of goods for holiday to avoid the tariffs. And we went back to Asia and we talked to everyone and said, hey, get us through the holiday season. So we'll survive holiday, but the big question is not about holiday, not about this Christmas. It's about next spring, next fall. Will we have the margins to sustain without passing it on to the customer? And if we pass it on to the customer, there's an old adage out there, as prices go up, sales go down. When sales go down, jobs get lost. So we're worried. We're concerned. We'd like to see these tariffs go away. We're really supportive of trying to improve the trading relationship with China. But can we do it? Can it be done? And we're looking at a clock right now. Who needs this? 90 hours until we get hit with more tariffs? This will not be good for our industry. We need these tariffs to go away, and we need a resolution of this conflict. It's good for the economy if the tariffs go away.
Rick, okay, let's say that there's no clock. You know where there is no clock? Other countries in Asia that are not China. We've talked about this idea that maybe supply chains are going to move away from China towards places like Vietnam, to Thailand, to Cambodia, other places within the Asia region that are not China. How much is your industry, apparel and footwear, looking at making those long-term changes to the supply chain because of the relationship between the U.S. and China?
Our industry is highly reliant on China. We've been trying to move away for the last 10 years. And China just seems to be a really good partner, particularly for our new customer who's a millennial and is very conscious about things like sustainability, the environment, product quality, product safety. China does it all. So the logical option is, okay, everyone says go to Vietnam. Well, Vietnam has a 14% market share. They're already running double shifts. They are full up. Where else are we going to go? Indonesia, Bangladesh, India? China's our prime place. 41% of all apparel, 69% of all footwear comes from China. And to be candid, we don't have a lot of choices where to go. Okay, you know, if the president really wants us out of China, 3 to 5 years to get out.
Gotcha.
And even then, we can't guarantee what the results will be.
All right, those supply chains, very much a big focus. Rick Helfenbein,
Yes.
always a pleasure to get your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, coming up on the show, a number of high-profile companies, including Alphabet and United, seeing turnover at the top. New numbers this morning on the record-breaking C-suite shakeups that we're seeing so far this year. Plus, former Dallas Fed President Richard Fisher joins us in just a few moments here. His predictions on what we'll get out of the central bank's policy meeting, that big Fed meeting later on this afternoon. All of this when Worldwide Exchange rolls on.
Just because you travel doesn't mean you can't keep your routine. The more obstacles travel puts between us and our well-being, the more we strive to work well. At Westin Hotels and Resorts, we're focused on empowering your well-being. With Westin Meetings, you work and feel your best with nutritious snacks and nourishing smoothies that give you the energy you need to power through any meeting. Don't leave your well-being behind. We give you the choice to get up or to rise. Search Westin online to find out more. Westin, let's rise.
Ah, Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6s with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offside backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Look at that. It's gorgeous. A live shot of 30 Rockefeller Center in New York City where the Christmas tree, yes, has already been lit. But it's all, you can add in a little bit of snow this time around in the Northeast. So the first time we'll see some snow mixed with that lit up Christmas tree at 30 Rock. Well, new figures out this morning reveal that 2019 may go down as the year of the C-suite shakeup. A record number of CEOs heading for the exit. Rahel Solomon joins us again with the numbers on that turnover story. And a lot of them are just kind of deciding they don't want to be the CEO anymore.
It appears so. So the C-suite in 2019, not so sweet for some. So new numbers just out this morning show record CEO turnover through November of this year. So looking back, there was Geisha Williams of PG&E, Mark Parker of Nike, Adam Newman of WeWork, and Steve Easterbrook of McDonald's. Executive coaching firm Challenger Gray & Christmas says as of November of this year, there have been 1,480 CEO departures, That's about 12% higher than the same time last year, but it's also the highest figure since Challenger Gray began keeping record in 2002. The firm tracks executive changes at companies that have been in business for at least 2 years with a minimum of 10 employees. So the industries that saw the highest turnover after nonprofits and government entities were technology and finance. And factors for the high number of departures other than the standard retirement include new roles within a different company and also expectations of greater accountability from CEOs after allegations of professional or personal misconduct. But we are also seeing examples of CEOs step down but then still remain within the company or on the board. Larry Page, for example, of Alphabet, he has said that he will play an active role at the company. And also Kevin Plank is still executive chairman of Under Armour's board. But looking at December now, the turnover continues. Oscar Munoz of United Airlines just announced last week that he's stepping down, but he too is staying on the board. But it's been a record-breaking year.
I mean, this has also been, I think there's an environment right now where chief executives, chief financial officers, chief operating officers are feeling a lot more heat from investors, not just from, say, the misconduct or accountability. Yes, they're giving them a little less latitude before they say, hey, you got to move things around. And by the way, we're not even bringing into account some of the activist investors that are out there kind of agitating or pushing for change.
And they're paid a lot of money, so a shorter leash is not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, that's also one thing, too, because there's a populist wave right now about the idea that income inequality could be a driver of what's happening in not just the C-suite, but elsewhere as well.
Yeah.
All right.
So a lot of people talking about that story today, but also some other stories.
Trending, you've got those for us. Yes,
I have
all right.
trending. Okay, so Glassdoor has put together its annual top 10 best places to work list, and some big tech names failed to make the cut. Facebook, which has taken the top honor 3 times since 2009, well, they dropped to number 23. Google's been a top 10 finisher for the last 8 years, but fell short of extending their streak, coming in at number 11. Apple came in at 84, and Amazon didn't even rank. Yeah, this year's top honor, though, did go to HubSpot. More on that in a moment. Chipotle giving out free burritos to savvy Instagram users. Through Friday, the company will post daily burrito codes on its Instagram page. So the first 500 people to text the code to 888-222 will be gifted a free entree. But you do have to act fast because Chipotle says, like the magic of the season, it'll be gone before you know it. And speaking of Apple, Apple's new Mac Pro desktop computer is generating a lot of buzz, and not just for its features. The price of the computer ranges from just under $6,000 to more than $52,000. The latter option comes with increased memory, a larger storage capacity, and also an upgraded processor. It's also the same price as most cars. Okay, so HubSpot, I looked on Glassdoor. It's a cloud computing software company. Here's apparently why it took the top spot this year. According to some commenters, unlimited vacay and paid time off. One person wrote, it's an absolutely incredible company. I'm never leaving. So yes, number one.
So unlimited vacation time. But I guess there's still a stigma about that, though, right?
Oh, I mean, of course.
You can't take like 5 months off and still expect to have a job maybe by the time it's done, right?
Maybe not, but I guess if you have that latitude, you just feel so much better about working really long days.
I just know they're not the only company that has those unlimited vacation days, but you got to you got to figure. Remember, Netflix was talking about it for a while about not having your managers kind of scrutinize you about those things as long as your work was done. All of that stuff. So I mean, those are all perks, I guess. But the labor force is tight, right? You need these perks to kind of get people to go.
Yeah, to get the top talent. HubSpot. But yeah, apparently Amazon, which is, I guess, not that surprising, not even on the list this year.
Well, Facebook, given all the PR woes, especially.
Yeah.
All right, Rahel Solomon, thank you very much for those trending stories. Well, in sports, a $324 million deal. The New York Yankees are betting big on pitcher Garrett Cole. Reports suggest he's agreed to a 9-year contract with the Yankees. That breaks down to roughly $36 million a year. That deal would make the 29-year-old the highest paid pitcher of all time and the 4th player in history to sign a deal worth more than $300 million. Now, Cole led all starting pitchers in strikeouts last season with 326, but of course all of this comes on the heels of that massive deal that Steven Strasburg got to stay with the Washington Nationals. Well, still on deck for the show, Netflix releasing the first figures for The Irishman. Details on just how many users watched that big mobster movie. Plus, Jay Powell and the Fed are set to release their final policy decision of 2019. Former Dallas Fed President Richard Fisher lays out the central bank's next moves. That's all coming up when Worldwide Exchange returns after this.
And you heard about me, oh, I got are the dreamers.
Ever feel bogged down by your business accounts? Say goodbye to that mountain of receipts and hello to simple solutions from Sage. We're the UK's #1 for managing finance, operations, and people, and we can support you to free up your future with smarter bookkeeping that automates repetitive tasks, dramatically reducing the time you spend typing in data. Join over 1 million British businesses who trust Sage to make it simple. Find out more at sage.com/automate. Hey NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Some days life can get in the way of catching up on the news that moves your world. TuneIn is here to help. With live 24/7 coverage from CNN wherever you go on the TuneIn app, you can always find a slice of your schedule, however long, to check in on the biggest stories of the day.
Hell hath no fury. The president's counselor went on a rampage on a taped phone call with Washington Examiner reporter.
Search CNN on TuneIn to get the live news when it matters most.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Welcome back in time for your executive recap, the headlines you need in 60 seconds. Shares of Saudi Aramco surging past expectations in the oil giant's trading debut. The stock jumped from the IPO price of $8.53 a share to $9.39. The jump gives the Saudi oil company a valuation of $1.88 trillion, the world's largest IPO ever. Well, Netflix is out with new figures on how many of its users viewed the now Golden Globe-nominated film, The Irishman. The company says that more than 26 million accounts watched at least 70% of the film in the first 7 days of release. Netflix estimates more than 40 million accounts will watch the movie in the first month. And Google has poached the chief medical officer of the health wearable startup AliveCor. The company says that Dr. Jacqueline Shribati will join its health initiative. That unit has apparently been working on tools to help doctors search through medical records, among other initiatives, so a big hire on that front. Well, here's how you and your money are shaping up here as their day sets up in this kind of 5:51 time period Eastern time. Right now, futures indicating a relatively stable opening bell. The Dow would open down by about 8 points if these futures moves hold into the opening bell. The S&P up by just about 1 point, and the Nasdaq up by about 6 points as well. The bond market also a key focus when Fed days are in play. You can see there the benchmark U.S. 10-year government note yield 1.816% there. The 2-year government note yield currently 1.636% there. So again, on all Fed days, a key focus will be on those rates and, of course, how bank stocks, financials overall will report kind of as these kind of days come along. Now, also, let's go worldwide. In the Asian trade, we did see a generally positive session there. Japan did open just about or close around flat. The Kospi in South Korea up about almost 0.5%. The Shanghai Composite 0.25% to the upside, and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong up 0.75%. In the European trade, again, it's the early going, but still a little bit of stability there as well. You can see the German DAX just about 0.1% to the upside in terms of things to watch there. The CAC in France off 0.25%, and the FTSE 100 in the UK off about 0.25% as well. Let's take a look at the macro picture. Oil prices have been very much a focus here, given the trade developments with China. As you can see there, WTI crude now off about 0.5%, $59. just about there, the last trade there. ICE Brent crude futures, $64.03. That's off about 0.5% as well. And gold, given what's happening with rates and the inflation picture, let's take a look at those prices because COMEX gold futures is currently indicating what's happening right now with a just about move there. Let's get a check on some of the other big stocks on the move today as well. Chevron will take a charge of at least $10 billion in the fourth quarter. We've got lower oil and gas prices in the long term. It's going to reduce the value of its assets. More than half of that write-down is related to gas drilling operations in Appalachia. Chevron says it will reduce spending on some projects and could sell some of its assets. And in a big interview, Chevron CEO Michael Wirth will be on Squawk Box later on this morning in an exclusive interview that's going to take place at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, talking about the entire dynamic happening in the oil markets right now, given the recent OPEC meetings and, of course, what's happening with the Saudi Aramco IPO. We've also got shares of Ollie's Bargain Outlet soaring today. The discount retailer reporting better than expected earnings and sales. Ollie's also promoting John Swigert from interim to permanent CEO. Now, he did take over after the death of company founder Mark Butler. That happened earlier this month. Those Ollie's shares up by about 11.5% in the pre-market trade. And then you've got GameStop reporting a surprise loss as same-store sales fell by 23%. The company is also cutting its full-year profit forecast as it struggles to deal with the shift of digital downloads for video games as well. So those shares off by about 15% in the extended trade. Well, in other headlines, the FAA is reportedly moving toward creating a new safety branch to address gaps in its oversight. Now, this comes in the wake of the deadly crashes of the Boeing 737 MAX jet. The FAA has come under scrutiny for its approval process for that aircraft, and it's, of course, been an ongoing saga there. FAA Administrator Steve Dixon will be testifying before Congress later on today. But before he heads to Capitol Hill, he will be on Squawk Box in an exclusive interview at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. So a lot to talk about there with regard to Boeing and the safety standards of those planes. Goldman Sachs believes the U.S. economy is picking up steam again after a lackluster start to the year. In an interview on CNBC, Goldman President and Chief Operating Officer John Waldron said that's due to easier monetary policy from the Federal Reserve and the resilience of the American consumer.
We're pretty constructive on the overall economy, certainly in the United States in particular. The economy feels, if anything, like it might be accelerating again from what had been a little bit more of a patchy 2019, certainly in the first half. I do think the Fed's easing bias has made a big impact. You know, our financial conditions index is operating at a very relatively historic low level. So we're seeing that implication of easier policy coming through into the economy, and it's become much more of a stimulant for particularly consumers, but corporations as well.
All right, so some relatively positive commentary on the economy there. Well, General Motors is making a big bet on big SUVs. The automaker unveiling the newly redesigned Chevrolet Tahoe and Chevy Suburbans last night. Both models are longer than previous ones, and GM says the industry is moving towards electric vehicles. Profits from those large SUVs will help pay for some of those investments in those EVs. GM controls about 70% of the large SUV market in North America, and of course that suburban vehicle has become synonymous with large SUVs pretty much the world over. Well, in Washington news, President Trump is bashing the articles of impeachment filed against him just yesterday, calling them flimsy, pathetic, and ridiculous. Here's NBC's Tracy Potts.
President Trump rallying overnight in Pennsylvania, unleashing on Democrats.
What happened? All of these horrible things, remember? Bribery and this and that. Where are they? This is impeachment light, because they want to win an election.
Republicans believe impeachment is dead in the water in the Senate.
I said I would be totally surprised if there were 67 senators to remove the president.
Impeachment moves forward with debate tonight and a committee vote tomorrow.
This reflects that this is a crime spree in progress, and that moves us to act with urgency.
Democrats accusing the president of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress for pushing Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden.
Nobody push it.
Freezing the country's aid and refusing to let White House staff testify about it.
We must be clear. No one, not even the president,
is above the law.
The evidence of the president's misconduct is overwhelming and uncontested.
Anticipating the president will be impeached next week, Senate Republicans want to move quickly.
I have no desire to make it a long trial. So I'm looking for 51 people to join me to say we've heard enough, we're ready to vote.
Stupid impeachment.
But the president wants time to call witnesses to make his case.
All right, thanks to NBC's Tracy Potts for that update on the impeachment inquiry. One final check of the markets as we approach the top of the hour here. Futures right now indicating, again, a very stable market ahead of that very big Fed rate decision coming up later on this afternoon. The Dow Jones would open up by just about, well, now down by about 3 whole points. Just 3 points if these futures moves hold into the opening bell for regular cash equities trading. The S&P would open up by just about 1 point and the NASDAQ up by about 8. So again, very much a holding pattern for many traders out there ahead of that big Fed interest rate decision. The bond market certainly in that holding pattern as well. Again, just 8 hours until that decision. Take a look at the bond markets overall. We have seen the benchmark U.S. 10-year note yield just drift slightly lower to 1.817%, so just below 1.82%, and the 2-year benchmark government note yield 1.636% as well. So again, those interest rates a key focus. One other place we will watch very closely today, as we do on every Fed day, is the reaction to what's happening with a lot of those banks. So keep an eye on that. So that does it now for Worldwide Exchange this morning. All that market coverage when the Fed Watch begins on Squawk Box, and it happens right now.
It does. Good morning. The countdown to December 15th is on. We'll bring you the latest on the possibility of a tariff delay before President Trump's deadline for a China deal.
Chevron is writing down the value of its assets by more than $10 billion. We'll tell you what's behind the move and bring you an exclusive interview with CEO Michael Worth.
And shares of Aramco rising 10% to an upward limit. After the world's largest initial public offering, we are going to break down the numbers and what it all means straight ahead. It is Wednesday, December 11th, 2019, and Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernan and Andrew Ross Sorkin. If you take a look at the U.S. equity futures right now, you'll see some red arrows, actually implied opens that are just above the close. This is happening as we await that Fed meeting, the minutes that we'll be getting later today, and then the press conference that comes with Chairman Jay Powell. Last couple of days, we have seen some declines for the markets, but you're still looking at all of these levels near their record close from November 27th. If you take a look at Treasury yields right now, you'll see that the 10-year, at least at this point, is yielding 1.816%.
And Saudi Aramco shares have begun trading today after the long-awaited trading. It's now the world's largest initial public offering, and the stock rose this morning 10% in Riyadh early today. It hit an upward limit that was actually set by Saudi Arabia's exchange, so it couldn't go higher. The listing falls short, though, we should say, of Prince Mohammed bin Salman's original goal. It did raise $25.6 billion instead of the earlier target of $100 billion. Still, the price gives Aramco a valuation of $1.88 trillion, and it makes it the largest listed company in the world.
So I guess what next, right?
Well, like
a lot of oil news today,
$1.88 trillion is not actually that far off from $2 trillion. So if you're MBS, I don't think you can totally.
You've been doing some research today, like I did yesterday. I found out what date it was. So 1.88 is not that far from 2.
I'm just saying that part of there's been this sort of Schadenfreude thing that's been going on for a very long time now, for the past year and a half, about how much he's going to raise, whether he's going to make it work, can he get his $2 trillion? At one point they wanted more than $2 trillion, but 1.88 is not bad.
The
question is whether this is
on the London Stock Exchange,
and whether there's a real valuation. That's the other thing.
Right.
So many of the investors who are in this are local investors.
It's such a small piece of it too.
It's a small piece. Some of them have actually been loaned money, by the way, by the government. So
that's why the real question
is a little bit of vendor financing
can it list on one of these other international exchanges?
And what kind of valuation can it get there? If it gets to a London Stock Exchange or a New York Stock Exchange in a sort of Uberish way, and there's not a Schadenfreude, this market value these things differently than these other
Or
markets.
we could be looking at the same thing
Exactly.
as
And
going
it's
from
not
private
just
markets
and it's not just investor sentiment on where it gets valued. We have another data point today from Chevron, from Chevron about the value
Valuation
of
of oil.
things that are in the ground right now. So, I mean, if Chevron says $10 billion is we're overvaluing some of these properties that may take much longer to be profitable based on how much it costs, because it costs more money for a lot of these new techniques to get it out of the ground. So if they're acknowledging $10 billion overstatement, you know how the Saudis value all that stuff they got over there. So who knows if it's 1.8?
Is this a valuation of oil overall, or is this just those particular assets in Appalachia, some of the shale that's there? Is it tougher to get that out?
Wouldn't it affect the whole? I mean, but that's where it's coming
Probably,
from now.
yeah. If you think the overall value for oil is not going to rise,
just tell you
it's
that-
not going to be as profitable to get that stuff out of the ground.
Right. Our peak oil friend who passed away, Simmons, didn't get to, I mean, we were arguing with him 12, 13, 15 years ago. Boone, who just passed away, finally conceded that he was dead wrong about peak oil.
The world's awash in oil, right?
The world's awash in oil, so we're making our SUVs a little longer.
Yes, you saw
which
that
we just
story,
saw with Dom Chu. We're going to, this is you. We are going to talk more. I'm excited about having Worth on. He's a good guy, good, smart.
Yes, the CEO, Michael Worth,
He's
CEO
gonna
of
be
Chevron,
on
is going to be
to talk
joining us
about
for an
all that.
exclusive interview at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time to talk about why they are writing this down and going ahead and getting rid of some of these assets at this point. And he'll tell you they're doing the restructuring in good times, that they have the flexibility and the ability to do just that. But we're going to talk to him about all of these issues. You see Chevron shares this morning down by about 31 cents.
Practicing.
$117.58. Why are you practicing?
For my next, after this read, my next read is about the USMCA because next
you're going
week.
the wrong way. That's what I was trying to tell you.
S's.
You're going backwards. S's don't go that way. They go.
No, look in the camera.
I'm looking at you.
But look at the
You're
camera.
looking backwards.
S.
I am the viewer. I am the viewer. I'm the viewer though, and I'm seeing it backwards from here. It looks like a V. That way. Yes.
Okay. C.
Yes.
Okay. Next week you're going to have to do it, and we're all doing it. U, S, and well, let me do this first. An update on the trade talks with China. Begins with a C. The Wall Street Journal reports U.S. and Chinese trade negotiations are laying the groundwork for a tariff delay, even though President Trump hasn't decided whether to push back the December 15th deadline. At this point, officials are haggling over how to get Beijing to commit to big purchases of U.S. farm products. Tremendous purchases, someone might say. Just have to wait and see. Yesterday, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow said tariffs are still on the table if President Trump isn't happy with the outcome of the trade talks. Could be tremendous development, or it could be a disaster if they don't. He does keep the words fairly.
Odds on tariffs being levied at this point. Additional tariffs.
Low.
I think low too. I think the market thinks low too, which is why it would come as a bit of a shock and surprise to them, I think.
Yeah,
investors.
I thought we figured out yesterday that we were
I wasn't
close.
here yesterday.
Oh, that's right. We were getting close again yesterday. We were on the close side instead of the not getting close side.
that's who was leaking yesterday.
Right. Any given day, we don't know.
Yeah.
And here's what I was talking about. Because next week, could be next week, if she doesn't. In other trade news, top officials from Canada, Mexico, and the United States signed an overhaul yesterday of the near 25-year-old NAFTA trade pact, dubbed the USMCA. We're going to play the song. We're going to do the symbols. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi signaling the deal could be up for a vote in the House as soon as next week. I mean, it's such a cumbersome name. NAFTA 2.0 is better, or new NAFTA, or whatever. But it for better or worse, sounds like the Marine Corps. But as long as we're doing USMCA, it's close enough to YMCA that we're going to play that song, huh?
USMCA is actually starting to roll off my tongue. I never thought
He'll eat 8 donuts on the air, but you won't do the symbol for USMCA. Are you uncomfortable with the village people? Why won't you do that? Do you remember? Did you used to do YMCA?
Yeah, I did.
But you won't do USMCA, even though it sounds the same. Your shticks that you come up with every day are much better than that. Is that what you're telling me? Really? Let me know when you come up with one.
I'll
just let me know. Okay. All right, good.
In the meantime,
work on that.
Work on an F. Can I get an F? Can I get an A? Can I get an A?
I don't think. An F you could do. F you could do. Stand up and go.
F.
Stand up.
F you.
Oh, F.
F-A. A.
Oh, FAA.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about next. FAA is moving toward creating a new safety branch to address gaps in its oversights. This comes in the wake of the deadly crashes of the Boeing 737 MAX. This is according to an internal email obtained by the Washington Post. That move comes as the agency is under scrutiny over its approval process for the 737 MAX. FAA Administrator Steve Dixon will be testifying before Congress today. Before he heads to Capitol Hill, he will join us live in an exclusive interview that's coming up at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And this one's going to be very interesting to hear what he has to say about this.
He's on, and Worth is on, and Senator Rob Portman is on. There's a lot of people on today. Have you looked at?
Are you ready?
No.
You don't?
Didn't know. Who else is here?
Just a lot of. So you are of the opinion that you should be experiencing the whole thing along with viewers. The newness of it.
I was surprised to see Becky this morning.
You were.
I was. I'm just. I was just.
We all have. We have some days. It's hard to get days off. I have some that I have to use, or else.
That's what I was doing last week.
If you don't use them, you lose them. But I like being here so much with you too that I don't really. If I don't use them, it's fine. Anyway, not true. Coming up, Fed Chair Jay. I mean, I do like being here, but I do think I need to use. For mental and physical health, you need to take those days.
With you.
Yeah,
that's for sure. That I shouldn't be here. Yeah. Fed Chair Jay Powell set to speak later today. We're going to tell you what to expect and what it means for investors. Straight ahead later, we're also, Pat Toomey. I think that might be your interview. So you might want to look at that. Rob Portman about a potential for a trade deal with China. We might ask how they're going to vote on some other issues that could be coming up, and the new agreement with Canada and Mexico. Toomey opposes that one. Squawk Box will be right back.
This CNBC program is...
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Then it was time for glow-in-the-dark mini-golf. I got a hole in one. Well, 3. I'm a bit rusty, okay? There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can feel your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition.
For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Fed's going to announce its latest interest rate decisions at 2 p.m. today. It's expected to hold rates steady and vow to keep short-term lending markets stable. We're going to be watching Chair Jay Powell's news conference for any comments on an improved economy, lower unemployment, after that big jobs number that we had on Friday for the November jobs report. All right, joining us now, Janelle Woodward, head of fixed income at BMO Global Asset Management, and Brian Levitt, global market strategist for North America at Invesco. How are you? Good morning. You're going to do our yield curve pal, but I first want to talk to Brian because you feel pretty good. That's nice. You feel pretty good about risk assets. You think even not even defensive risk assets. You think it's going to continue into next year. We used to talk about your concern about a strong dollar.
Yes.
A lot. And that's been de facto what has happened. So you're right about that. But you had the effects of that were going to be negative in some markets 6, 7, 8 months ago. Was it in profit margins? Was it in the economy? You thought the economy wouldn't be as...
No, so we were optimistic on risk assets. But my concern was if the Federal Reserve remained tight and we went too far down the path on trade, if we continue to strengthen the dollar and invert the yield curve, then you could have a problem. So I've been pleased. Coming into this year, I said it's going to be a year of weaker growth but better policy, and that's what's played out, and that's why the markets are up some 25-30% this year. So what they've done, and the Federal Reserve should be quite pleased, they have eased financial conditions, they've stabilized the dollar, and markets have responded in kind, as they should.
So once the Fed capitulated last year, or whenever it was, late last year.
Yes.
That's when you shifted from maybe it wouldn't be as negative for overall markets.
Well, look, we've been of the mind that we're in a secular bull market. Okay. Secular bull market, they tend to last 14, 16 years. We believe it started in 2009. So we were never negative on a secular perspective. What we were saying in 2018 was that the Federal Reserve was responding to stimulus and near-term better economic activity, which caused them to raise interest rates multiple times in 2018.
So your worry would the dollar would have gotten even stronger because it hasn't gotten weak. It's stayed strong.
It's stable. They had to back off.
But it would have gone even higher.
Yeah, they had to back off to stay. But we needed to see improvements in policy this year. We got that, and the secular story continues.
You know, you think Powell's doing a good job at this point? They where they need to be? Are they at normal? Are they on hold? Everything's good? Should we even be talking about them?
Well, consensus right now is that we'll be on hold this meeting. I think one of the things that we're watching is what will the outlook for 2020 be? If we look at the dots, we see that really the floor right now is where policy is. And I think the question, and we look at expectations into next year, the market's still looking for a little bit more. And so I think the question is, what will they do with forward guidance? How can we anticipate policy? How does it flow through into financial conditions? And ultimately, how does that translate into the real economy? So I think that's really what the story is today.
Okay. The next move, no one will answer this. I don't care when it is. Take forever. The next move is up or down from the Fed?
We think they're on hold for the time being, but we think probably down.
Down? Because most people think up because of the 3.5% unemployment, wage gains, workforce getting tight. It's going to be seen in corporate profit margins as they have to, compete for workers. We're pretty low still. But the next one is down. Why? What happens?
I think that what we're really focused on is the inflation story. And I think what we saw is tightening too quickly, too fast, and then the delayed reaction into the real economy, and then we went past neutral. So we really have had two policy transitions this year, tightening to neutral, neutral to accommodation. And so we think that that's going to create a lot of hesitancy in terms of when we would look to tighten in the future.
Paul Volcker died a couple of days ago. So is this still his legacy, do you think, to some extent, where inflation is? Did he put a nail in it back in the 80s? Is that possible to do something that lasts years and decades?
There's definitely been a lot of structural changes in the economy that have driven inflation where it's at. And I think that there's a lot of consideration on additional policy tools, and it is global, certainly. And demographics, productivity, we've certainly imported it. And I think one of the other things that we're watching from the Fed in 2020 is what other policy tools are at play. I think one of the biggest concerns where we look at where rates are at right now is there's a limited number of bullets. And if right now we're in insurance policy and we haven't even shifted to really full accommodation mode, what are the other tools in play? And I think that's one of the things that we'll definitely begin to hear more about in 2020.
Joe, it's an interesting point about Volcker because we all grew up and were raised on what happened in the late 1970s and the policies that enabled us to finally break the back of inflation and lead to this great moderation. But since the global financial crisis, it's really been a shift towards a disinflationary environment. We've been growth starved throughout the world. So what the Federal Reserve has been learning and learned the hard way in 2018 is that raising interest rates in a slow growth, disinflationary world is problematic. To your point about the dollar, because capital comes into the United States, slows economic activity, and hurts multinational earnings. So my view is that the Federal Reserve is likely on hold, but I do believe that any additional attempt to raise, I agree. I think the next move is down. If they attempt to raise rates again, the yield curve is still very flat, and you start to cause problems for the real economy.
You think the wild card is trade too, right?
Well, look, I mean, I believe that we just need incremental improvements on trade in 2020, and I believe that businesses start to need some clarity. I don't believe that trade kills this cycle. I don't believe that trade, if we proceed with tariffs, that's going to be the end of the cycle. Because it'll create some inefficient outcomes that we'll have to deal with. It's the uncertainty that leads to the stalled business investment and weaker economic activity. So long as we get some incremental improvements and businesses further understand the rules of the game, then I think this proceeds.
You just watch the Fed, or you care about trade too? The 10-year moves on trade lately, right?
No, definitely watching trade. I think one of the things that's interesting is you look towards expectations for 2020 in terms of corporates. We're actually expecting to see earnings go up about 10%. And we're seeing the expectation is that profit margins improve versus what we saw in 2019. And so I think when you look at what's priced into the market, there is some expectation that there's going to be a resolution and that it's going to be constructive for business spending and through the overall earnings picture. And I think the concern here is if it were to escalate, what does it do in terms of labor markets, in terms of investment? And I don't think that's fully priced in right now. And so it's definitely something that we have to watch.
Okay, we'll end it there, Janelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mil. Thank you.
Love it.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
When we come back, trade war fallout. The government reportedly planning to spend big bucks to process rare earth minerals. We will tell you why next. And later, don't miss our exclusive interview with Chevron CEO Michael Wirth. He will join us to talk about the company's $10 billion write-down.
Ah, Christmas, a time for sharing gifts and laughter, and photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
You never know where life will take you, which is why the new BMW 3 Series Touring is perfect if you're all packed up for, or escaping to. It has extensive storage and an automatic tailgate, handy if your hands are full. And it even has an optional intelligent voice assistant to help you at every turn. The new BMW 3 Series Touring. Book your 24-hour test drive today. Test drive subject to status and availability. Participating retailers only.
At Asda, packs of beer are just £12 each, including 24 bottles of Budweiser, 18 cans of Stella, or 12 bottles of Birra Moretti. Looks like you're hosting this year. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores online subject to availability. Budweiser 300ml, Stella 440ml, Moretti 330ml. Exclude Scotland drink aware.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Smart sports wagering talk is now on TuneIn. This is Brett Musburger. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Search BETR. Be better informed. Be better prepared. And remember, cash and tickets is what it's all about.
Hey, TuneIn listeners. Steve Kornacki here from NBC News. I want to tell you about a podcast I'm hosting called Article 2, Inside Impeachment. It's dedicated to bringing you the latest developments on the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I talk to NBC News reporters who are closest to the story to break down what's new, what matters, and what it means for the 2020 election. Search and favorite Article 2, Inside Impeachment on TuneIn.
To LeBron, slam dunk. The NBA is on TuneIn Premium. Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. The Miami Heat are taking their talents to Texas to take on the second-year phenom, Luka Doncic, and the Dallas Mavericks.
Pulls back, trying to make it 11-2.
This Saturday, the Miami Heat are at the Dallas Mavericks. Tip-off is at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
Box, it is time now for the executive edge. The U.S. Army planning to fund construction of rare earths processing facilities. This, according to Reuters, it's part of an urgent push by Washington to secure domestic supply of minerals that are used to make military weapons and electronics. That would mark the first investment by the U.S. military into commercial-scale rare earths production back since the Manhattan Project in World War II. China, which refines most of the world's rare earths, has threatened to stop exporting the specialized minerals to the U.S., using its monopoly as a potential leverage in the trade war. So this is an interesting development in terms of what we can do. It's sort of an America First strategy in terms of
not even an America First. This is just protect yourself.
Right, protect yourselves. But no, but it's right. And here, this is an interesting thing. Now, by the way, I'm sure that there are going to be environmentalists and all sorts of other people who are going to look at this with other views,
which we certainly need to talk about.
Well, except for that, some of those rare earths are necessary if you want to build things like
in the real world
vehicles for batteries for them,
for phones and for everything else. 100%. No, but you're saying
if you're on the environmental side, part of what they need to do.
Everything's relative. Life is relative.
Just like fossil fuels, which we may be using for a few more years, Andrew. Okay, Boomer. So that was rare earth. That was the ban. Singing, I Just Want to Celebrate. I thought we could have played it we can play it next week for USMCA. Should we celebrate USMCA?
No, we're playing YMCA for that.
We could do both.
Sounds quick.
You're uncomfortable with that. I don't understand why you don't want to do the USMCA. But what about rare? You think I Just Want to Celebrate is okay for the NAFTA 2.0? Do you like it? Are you happy with it?
You could be happy with it.
Pat Toomey is not. Well,
that's
your interview. Okay, that's your interview. I just want to make sure. But the reason, this was 1971 when this song came out, and I remember it very well when it came out.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I remember the moon landing, too. These are things that give me perspective, balance, wisdom, gravitas. Not negative things. I mean, there are some negative things which I talk about quite a bit, as you know. Anyway, in sports, a $324 million deal. The New York Yankees are betting big on pitcher Garrett Cole, with reports suggesting that he's agreed to a 9-year contract with the team. That's roughly $36 million a year, approximately $1 million per start.
Not bad.
The deal would make the 29-year-old the highest paid pitcher of all time, and the fourth player in history to sign a deal worth more than $300 million. Cole led all starting pitchers in strikeouts last season with 26. And
326.
326, I'm sorry, yeah. 26. But I was already thinking about the next thing I was saying. That was comparing it to CEO pay, and then we get into the whole discussion about that. It's just as, do CEOs have a true marketplace? That's the thing with boards and everything else, because this is pure... you pay the guy, you want him, you win.
By the way,
more people come to the stadium.
He was going to be he was, I think, a first-round draft pick for the Yankees way back when, but then he decided to go play for UCLA instead. He's a Yankees fan, has been his whole life. Yeah. So this is a bit of a coming home for him.
Talking sports. Farley was here last week. We had a lot of good sports discussions. last week. You're completely detached again.
We talk about like volleyball, badminton. These are games. No, I'm just saying badminton. I'm just saying
volleyball's a serious sport.
Can be.
So is badminton. No, I'm not.
You're such a nut.
Coming up when we return, a tale of two video game stocks. We will tell you about a winner and a big loser right after the break. And still to come, don't miss our exclusive interview with FAA Administrator Steve Dixon. That's coming up at 8 a.m. Eastern Time.
Actually, volleyball is a serious sport. Michael Worth's daughter played competitively at one of the great universities right around here.
We're going to find out. I will not pour mouth volleyball. Also, as we head to a break, a look at yesterday's S&P 500 winners and losers.
I heat up, I can't cool down. Got me spinning round and round. Listen to your heart when he's calling for you. Listen to your heart. There's nothing else you can do. I don't know.
Executive Edge is...
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything. Or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We can't in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
Santa's got his list.
He's checked it twice. He's found out who's naughty or nice.
So now it's our job to make all the gifts.
Which for us elves means back-to-back shifts.
Teddies, tablets, toys galore. Every Christmas there's always more.
Hey, you lot. Let's chat till you're finished.
That's the thing, boss.
The job's all done. We finished the list and then some.
And we won't be the only ones who sing, because we told all the elves. Red Bull gives you wings.
Ah, Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
TSB Local Pride celebrates incredible stories of people helping people up and down the country. I'm Jenny Falconer, and let me introduce you to Elaine. Elaine, tell me all about Therapy Ponies.
With my husband John, we are the owners and operators of Therapy Ponies Scotland. John and I take our miniature Shetland ponies into care homes and nursing homes and all kinds of facilities for disabled adults and children. Just to see the smiles and happy faces, the ponies are just a distraction from everything. It's all just completely forgotten in that moment and just makes them so happy.
Elaine's bringing joy to sick children and elderly patients across Scotland 6 days a week with her amazing Therapy Ponies. TSB are proud to share stories like these of people helping people and to partner Pride of Britain. To find out more, search TSB Local Pride.
I'll tell you one thing, it's always better when we're together. It's always better when we're together. Well, we'll look at them stars and we're together.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Squawk Box. We've been watching the U.S. equity futures at this hour. Take a look at it right now. You're going to see that the Dow futures have actually turned negative. They're down by about 18, 19 points below fair value. S&P futures still above at about 1.5 points above fair value. And then the NASDAQ futures up by about 10.5.
We've talked about this a lot in the past, Sorkin. You have. Was it running on fumes for a while, don't you think?
Check it out. Remember, I remember having this conversation.
That's what I mean. Years ago.
We talk about this in the
but running on fumes. But
tell the public what's going on.
All right. Relax. It's called a tease. Called with someone hanging on the edge of their seat at home. Two stocks to watch in gaming. GameStop reporting a surprise third quarter loss. Same-store sales fell 23%, posted a loss of 49 cents versus the expected 11 cent per share profit. The company also slashing its full-year profit forecast as it struggles with the shift to digital downloads of games, which we couldn't figure out why that didn't happen. I mean, there are reasons to go in. You know, you talk to like the geeky expert that works there and find. I mean, and my son likes to go and stuff, but we've wondered how long it can avoid the fate of Blockbuster. Yeah. Anyway, same-store sales are expected to decline in the high teens.
Look, there's going to be a day where on the console side, you have to download the games. That's what's going to happen. Like where every game is a downloadable game.
So you'll still need a console, then?
You'll probably
buy it on Amazon.
You'll need the console. You know, here's the good news, actually. You'll need the console, and you'll probably need the fiber or wire to your home.
Right.
That's actually what you're going to need. But in a 5G world, actually, unfortunately, you may not even need the cable to get the download. That's where this is all headed.
Okay. I've never been to a Dave & Buster's. You?
Yeah, I've been.
You? Why am I asking?
Dave & Buster's? Are you crazy?
There's one in the city. Do you go?
Right over. I have been too many times.
Because of the video games?
Because Henry and Max...
They do.
Love it there. And there's a game there there are 2 games that I'm actually very good at there.
Which ones?
And I can get the tickets, and then we can get prizes.
Cheap, crappy little prizes that you work so hard for, right?
I tell the kids all the time.
So
we could just go buy these things on Amazon.
You earn them yourself.
Right. It's about earning something, Sorkin.
You know it's a ball thing, and you throw it at the things across the way, and, but there's like almost like hair coming out of each of one, so that
e-ball.
No, it's not. No,
I thought you meant
you're sort of throwing at. No, you're throwing at these things and tipping them over.
Oh yeah, with the hair around the side. Yeah, because it goes through there. You think you're going to hit it.
So I'm oddly good at that. And then there's another one with a thing where you press a ball and the ball drops into a jar, and you have to get as many balls to drop in the jar as it circles around. I'm also.
What's the best prize? What's the best and badminton? But what's the best prize that that you've gotten? It's like a little thing you put on that you can't pull. You put them together and you can't pull your finger. It's like made out of plastic.
The best thing we ever got. Paper. No, the best thing we ever got was a Spider-Man pancake maker. Not pancake maker, a waffle maker.
No way.
Waffle maker that has a Spider-Man little.
That's a real gift. That's a real.
Trust me. There was a lot of playing involved.
Yeah.
To get those tickets.
Multiple visits.
And you've used it and eaten a Spider-Man waffle.
We have had a Spider-Man waffle on a Saturday morning.
All right. Well, I guess we should. We don't have any more time, so
that's the Dave & Buster's segment.
Yeah, right. I know. Restaurant chain Dave & Buster's reported better than expected sales because of this idiot for its latest quarter. It does expect same-store sales to fall for the full year, but by less than it did previously forecast. Take a look at the shares, which are actually up 1 point, almost 2%.
Okay, let's tell you about Dropbox right now because their shares are under pressure. I like this company, though, I must say. I think it's one of the great products. The company announced that its chief customer officer will step down after a brief transition period. The company's chief tech officer announcing back in October that he will be leaving. Each executive will receive a transition payment of $500,000, according to a regulatory filing.
All right, when we come back, a House committee will be questioning the FAA today over the certification of the Boeing 737 MAX. We'll talk about what to expect from the FAA administrator when he comes to Squawk Box ahead of that hearing. And later, don't miss our exclusive interview with Chevron CEO Michael Wirth. Stay tuned. You are watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC.
You never know where life will take you, which is why the new BMW 3 Series Touring is perfect if you're all packed up for, or escaping to. It has extensive storage and an automatic tailgate, handy if your hands are full. And it even has an optional intelligent voice assistant to help you at every turn. The new BMW 3 Series Touring. Book your 24-hour test drive today. Test drive subject to status and availability. Participating retailers only.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, When you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Cutting for the net, scores! Along the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Catch the latest news as it happens with MSNBC on TuneIn. From American politics to global events, when breaking news hits, you'll never miss a moment again. Search MSNBC on TuneIn to hear the latest.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Kansas.
Search NFL today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Welcome back, everybody. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee holding a hearing this morning on the Federal Aviation Administration's oversight of the Boeing 737 MAX certification. A new report says that the agency plans to create a new safety branch. Phil LeBeau joins us right now from Washington ahead of an exclusive interview with the FAA Administrator, Steve Dickson. And Phil, what should we expect this morning?
Plenty of candor. Steve Dickson is always very candid about his assessment, not only when it comes to the MAX, but we'll also talk to him about this Washington Post report that they will create a separate branch that will try to look into the safety gaps when it comes to the certification of new commercial aircraft. In the hearing that'll take place today on Capitol Hill, this is going to be focused on how the FAA has handled the 737 MAX. Designed authorization or the designated authorization reps, that's a controversial issue that a lot of people believe that perhaps they need to rein that in, take back some of those DARs. These are people who work at Boeing but have been designated by the FAA to approve certain parts of the airplane as it's going through the certification process. That will no doubt get a fair number of questions. Also in the afternoon, there is a second panel where a former Boeing manager who was at the Renton plant, what they now call a Boeing whistleblower. He will be talking about why he believes that they increased dangers as they were increasing production, basically moving too fast, which hurt the workmanship on the planes, created safety issues. That will get a fair amount of attention this afternoon. The whistleblower and his complaints, we asked Boeing about that. As you take a look at shares of the company says, look, we took his complaints seriously when he raised them to us. But again, that will be a focus of the questions in the afternoon panel. In the morning, it will be FAA Administrator Steve Dickson. He is first up. But before any of that happens, guys, he's going to sit down and talk with us exclusively. Coming up at 8 o'clock, we'll talk with him not only about the 737 MAX, the certification process, but really the big question is right now, they have said all along, Becky, we are not going to go on Boeing's timeline because Boeing wants the plane certified in December, in this month. We're going to do it on our own timeline. We'll get an update from Steve Dickson about where he sees the process right now.
Phil. You going to get Kirby on here? You working on that, Scott Kirby?
Yes.
Are you working on that? Will you bring him on this show?
We're working on it.
Please.
Yeah.
Promise.
You have some questions for him?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do, but I don't need any. If you're doing it, we just want him on the show. Get the relationship going, everything else, because we love the Oscar. But you'll work on that.
We're working on it. I've got a little menu pad here. What does Joe want? I'm writing that down at the top.
Very good. Hey, with Steve Dixon, I mean, Congress obviously has some tough questions for Boeing that he's going to be facing, but he's the new guy. He wasn't there for any of this. He's a former Air Force pilot, former Delta Airlines executive. So he is probably going to be able to withstand all of this pretty well. He's the new guy coming in to clean it up.
Correct. He is not somebody who they're going to turn around and say, well, now, why did you make that decision? He's a fresh set of eyes. And that's one of the things that when you talk with people here in Washington, that's one of the things that makes him appealing, that he does not come into this with sacred cows, where he says, oh, no, we can't change that. He's coming into this job, and he is saying, okay, what works, what doesn't work? More importantly, what do we need to fix so that the FAA retains the status that it has had for decades as the gold standard when it comes to aircraft safety? That is what he wants to make sure that happens under his watch at the FAA, and that's this Washington Post report. This gets to that. Okay, do we need to create a new branch that's going to look at gaps in the certification process? Let's do that. That's one of the things that we're going to be talking with him about.
You think the odds, I mean, how would you kind of handle this at this point in terms of whether you think that 737 MAX gets approved in December or not? If you're going to go to Congress and say, we're doing it on our timeline, there's only a few weeks left in December. If you do it in December at that point, it's going to sound like you were caving to Boeing to begin with.
I personally don't think it'll happen, Becky, for a couple of reasons. One, they've got a number of hurdles that still need to be cleared, including a certification flight, including a couple of board panel reviews that also have public comment periods built in. Some of these are going to be 10 to 15 days. I mean, just do the math. This is not going to happen by the end of the year. Could it happen in early January? Could it happen by the end of January? Yeah, that's a possibility, and increasingly that's what I'm hearing from people is more likely.
All right, let's bring in another voice on this as well. Airline industry watcher Seth Kaplan is principal at Kaplan Research. And Seth, what do you think? What are you kind of listening for this morning? What are going to be key points?
Yeah, well, I agree. Hard to imagine this being certified anytime soon here. Look, they've got sort of several different things to balance, because don't forget, there's also scrutiny around the world. And so what's a little bit tricky here, a little more complicated than other processes, as Phil said, it used to be whatever the FAA did, everybody else sort of followed. Here, you don't not only want to, be on Boeing's timeline, but you don't want to get so far ahead of things that you end up going forward with something that other regulators aren't ultimately going to be okay with. We've known for a long time that this might be done first in the U.S. Certification might happen first in the U.S. That's fine if the timeline is different. But those reports a month or so ago that Canadian regulators, perhaps, at least according to sort of internal middle management emails, might not be okay with the fix as it is. They also have to make sure that ultimately whatever is certified here is going to be certified around the world, because there can't be two different airplanes. The world has to be okay with this.
Well, not only certified around the world, they've got to get it right to make sure that they continue to be the gold standard, as Phil just mentioned.
Exactly. So the FAA's credibility here on the line. I mean, look, the scrutiny is on the FAA, but the impact here is on Boeing for the long term, because in the end, the FAA now has this additional need to show independence. And that's going to matter for future aircraft programs here. Look, in the end, it's in Boeing's interest obviously to get this right. And if this takes a little bit extra time, for one thing, make sure that this plane is what it was supposed to be, which was an incremental change from the previous generation, the NG as it's called, the new generation, now actually the previous generation, so that pilots can continue to transition between the planes rather easily. They wouldn't want something that's so rushed.
I mean, that's been the huge question. It's a different airline in terms of the engines being moved, lots of other things that have happened. Is it incremental change?
Well, the point of MCAS, as flawed as it is, was to make it an incremental change, was to make the new plane feel like the old plane. And we'll see here going forward if from a training standpoint, if that continues to be the case. Because if not, that would put this plane at a competitive disadvantage against Airbus, whose new engine, the Neo it's called, the new engine option. The new Airbus 320s very clearly are that incremental change from the old plane. Truly the best of both worlds, which is what both of these manufacturers were selling, right? Revolutionary economics, but easy to move pilots between the two planes. And so it's in Boeing's interest for the long term. I mean, look, every month that goes by here obviously costs a lot of money. But if it takes a little more time for the FAA to be comfortable with the idea that this is what it was supposed to be from that perspective, then it's very much worth getting that right for the long term.
Seth, thank you for joining us. And Phil, thank you. We will see you a little later this morning with the FAA administrator.
Thanks, Becky.
Okay. Coming up when we return, this mystery stock, I should say, is up more than 90% in 2019. And our next guest says it's not done rising yet, and why college-educated mothers are to thank. Play the guessing game. We'll tell you about it on the other side.
Forget to subscribe to our podcast. You'll get interviews, original content, and behind-the-scenes access. Look for us on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. And subscribe to Squawk Pod today.
After years of overpaying for eye care,
these 40 short seconds are all it takes to enter your details into timetofine.com and locate the perfect Swiss watch. Browse and tell them which of the many thousands of watches you want to buy. They'll then put the word out to authorized retailers who'll let you know when they found it, usually within 24 hours. There's an optional concierge service too, and even a seasonal £50 off your first luxury Swiss watch purchase. Save precious time at timetofine.com. £50 off first order only. Terms and conditions apply.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
To the sideline, the man Fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Pump fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right.
NBA today to start listening.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with...
And tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
To Squawk Box. Our next guest joins us to highlight 3 stocks in his portfolio that have hit all-time highs just within the past couple of weeks, and he thinks they're going to go even higher. Here with us to discuss it all is Bill Smead, Chief Investment Officer of Smead Capital Management. We want to start this morning, and we got the telestrator here, so we get to make all sorts of designs. So I can say, is this going to go up or is this going to go down? That's the question in the morning. So, okay, let's start with this. We got Target, we got Walt Disney, and we got JP Morgan, all which have been on a huge run. And so the question is, if you own these stocks, should you hold them or should you keep going?
Right. That's always the great question. The index's advantage over most portfolio managers is they never get out of the way of their best performing stocks.
Yes.
Right? So they never sell too soon on a stock that goes up 50 times. And as portfolio managers, you have to hold your winners to a fault. In the case of Target, as just one example, it's had, as you can see, it's had a nice little run up here. So as a long,
look at you with the telestrator.
Here we go. As a long-term investor, you know that it could pull back 10, 15%, even 20%. But over the next 10 years, there are 90 million millennials that are having kids and buying kids apparel. They sell cars. Target, and their apparel sales were up 10%, and we're at the early stages of aggregating them. So you might go, down here and then up here on the next leg, and you'd feel really bad if you sold it here.
Okay, let's talk about the next one on our list as we flip it around and show everybody Walt Disney, if we can. If we can. If we can't, that's okay. We can just make a smiley face on this thing. Go. Okay, so look at this thing. This has been on an incredible run. Yeah. The question, there's a short-term question and a long-term question. Short-term question is actually whether you think it continues to go higher, given and what kind of news we'll get on Disney Plus in terms of subs. Right. That's going to be the next catalyst. And then sort of long-term, by the way, even if Disney Plus works, what you think of the rest of the business, especially the business that's connected to linear television.
Right. So first off, in this particular case, you've had a nice run up, although what you don't see here is the prior 3 or 4 years the stock had languished for quite a while. Secondly, at the current interest rates, most your major highly thought of growth companies trade at 25 times earnings, which is about where Disney is right now. Okay. A better question with Disney, whereas it might do this for a while, is did the people that went on Disney Plus watch something that they really liked? Right. Because I'm seeing advertisements for Netflix talking about The Irishman. The Irishman. I saw The Irishman in Milan in a movie theater. And by the way, the Italians love Scorsese and they love Tarantino. Right. And I'm a Godfather guy to the core, right? I love those gangster movies. And I love those actors. And I was checking my watch at 2 hours on a 3.5-hour movie. And I just heard today that 26 million people, they said, watched at least 70% of it. Right. That's about the time I checked out mentally, was about 70% of the way into the show. So
you watched it in a theater instead of watching it at home when you can check back out and back in. We've changed.
No, if it's not a good movie, it doesn't make any difference. And literally, I don't watch Diane Keaton movies because her character aborted Michael Corleone's baby in The Godfather. Okay,
and you can relate that back to the Disney stuff.
And because everything that's on Disney Plus, the people that watch it are delighted. Right. Because content is king. Now, there are a ton of kids coming along. A child is born in the United States, regardless of socioeconomic background, and a child is a customer of this company.
Okay.
How many bathroom breaks, Bill?
Okay,
I made it all the way through. That's a good question.
Did you really?
Tell me what you think, though, of JP Morgan, which again also has been on a nice little run.
So this is fascinating. I at Smith Barney years ago for 12 years I worked with Jamie Dimon. Yep. So during the time that Jamie Dimon was working Sandy Weil, they kept talking to people about, before we get done, we're going to get to a 15 multiple with this. They ended up merging with Citigroup. And in this particular case, in the 1960s, when the economy was pretty good and rates were rising, the multiples on these banks went into the 15 to 17 world. They've been stuck at a 12 multiple at best. And remember how hated these businesses were. Now, 90 million millennials have not been liability customers of the banks. And one of the most profitable things the bank does is make those loans. So, yes, it could correct temporarily, but then, of course, when it gets done doing that over the next 5 years, you might go back to this and have a lot of fun in the process.
Bill, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm just going to make, here, can we do this? Smiley face with, you can't, I don't know how to.
You got to change the.
Oh, you got to draw. I'm just learning how to use this thing.
Wrong one.
We got to go. We got to go.
Terrific.
Thank you.
You didn't like
Thank
my
you.
USMCA thing. Your shticks. So, did you see? There you go. Did you see? Sorkin, you see The Irishman? You saw
Of course I saw The Irishman.
See,
and by the way, not only did I look at my clock, I watched like a TV series. I watched it in 45-minute chunks.
Yeah, but
That's the way I watch things now. I can't watch anything.
But okay, here's the thing. I'm going to give you the Rex Reed bottom line. Scorsese let these guys do what they want to do, and I can watch them forever, even to the point where they're talking about priests and they're dying. That's how long you follow these gangsters' lives, all the way to the end. But it was good. It was just
Disney never has.
You're not going to see too many more of those.
Never has a 70-year-old guy play a 40-year-old guy. I mean, that isn't going to work.
They're drawings half the time. They're not even real.
Ah, Christmas, a time for sharing gifts and laughter, and photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline, the man bleeds for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on
Pump
TuneIn.
fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA today to start listening.
Hey, tune-in listeners, Steve Kornacki here from NBC News. I want to tell you about a podcast I'm hosting called Article 2, Inside Impeachment. It's dedicated to bringing you the latest developments on the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I talk to NBC News reporters who are closest to the story to break down what's new, what matters, and what it means for the 2020 election. Search and favorite Article 2, Inside Impeachment on TuneIn.
Smart Sports Wagering Talk is now on TuneIn. This is Brett Musburger. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Search BETR. Be better informed. Be better prepared. And remember, cash and tickets is what it's all about.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Towards right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Decision day for the Fed. What it means for your investments straight ahead.
Tariff tension. Senator Pat Toomey joins us to discuss the latest on the trade front.
Plus, pot stocks up in smoke, a major cannabis conference kicking off today. The CEO of Acreage Holdings joins us to talk about the industry's future. The second hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning and welcome back to Squawk Box right On CNBC, I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin along with Becky Quick and Joe Kernan. Take a look at U.S. equity futures at this hour. We're going to try to show you what is going on and where things are headed. The Dow looks like it would open up about 9.5 points higher. S&P 500 up about 5 points. NASDAQ looking to open about 20 points more.
All right, here's what's making headlines at 7 a.m. Probably similar to 6 a.m., but if you weren't tuned in, Saudi Aramco shares jumped the maximum 10% in their debut session on the Riyadh Stock Exchange, puts the market value of the state-owned oil company at about $1.9 trillion. The FAA is moving to create a new safety unit. According to an internal email obtained by the Washington Post, the unit would be created to address gaps in oversight following those crashes involving the 737 MAX aircraft. And Phil, we're going
Phil LeBeau is going to bring us that interview.
Bring us an interview with his first name, Dixon.
John Dixon.
John Dixon.
From the FAA, the new administrator. Before he goes to Congress.
Before he does. He's coming here first. Mortgage applications rose 3.8% last week, according to new figures from the Mortgage Bankers Association. The rise was driven entirely by a jump in refinancing activity. The average 30-year mortgage rates holding under 4%.
Okay. The countdown is on to the final Fed decision of 2019, and the central bank widely expected to keep rates on hold. Steve Leisman joins us now with what markets should expect later.
Morning, Andrew. With the Fed meeting just days after that blowout jobs report, normally the market would be thinking about, well, when and how much are they going to hike? As in, that's right, how much would they hike today? But not in the new normal times we live in. Instead, the Fed expected to remain on hold, and the question is, how long is that hold going to last, and which way will the Fed next move? And part of that comes from the very high bar that Fed Chairman Jay Powell set at the last press conference for any kind of interest rate hike.
I think we would need to see a really significant move up in inflation that's persistent before we even consider raising rates to address inflation concerns.
So what would it take for the Fed to move? Let's take a look. Well, a material change in the outlook is words that Powell has used before. In other words, inflation or growth coming in much different from how the Fed expected. A trade deal, perhaps, although some economists think whatever impact the trade wars have had is already sort of baked in, at least for the first half of 2020. And then, of course, a change in the global economic growth, weakness or strength either way, and their interest rates. Christine Lagarde taking the helm tomorrow at her first ECB meeting. What the Fed may have learned, guys, is that its real policy rate, that's adjusting it for inflation, it just needs to be negative in the times we live in to achieve potential growth. Take a look here. Go back to the end of the 1991 recession. The real Fed funds rate has been negative 55% of the time. This century, 71% of the time. So a negative real funds rate is the normal. Fed got slapped around by markets and the president, and it's now a aborted attempt to push rates into positive territory, what we all thought used to be normal. It's not a mistake it's going to make again anytime soon, so look for the Fed to be on hold for several months. And I think, Becky, what I'm hearing is that is positive for risk in this market.
Hey, Steve, I've seen a few people speculating that the reason the jobs number was so strong is because there's a lot of temporary work that's there for the holidays. Does that theory hold any water with you?
No, well, unless what you're saying is the government did not adjust correctly for the expected push in temporary work.
Are there more temporary workers than normal? I don't know.
Yeah, if that's true, that's good. But let me just tell you, that's what the term seasonal. And I think, hey, it is the season for seasonal adjustment. The data expects a massive influx of workers in December. It seasonally adjusts that out. Just like it expects these people to leave their jobs in January, they seasonally adjust that out. That's how we get 100, 200,000. I've said this 100 times, Becky, as you know. We may be up 1 million or down 1 million, but the way the seasonals put that is they smooth that out, up 100,000 or up, in this case, 266,000. It may be that there's more temporary workers. If that's true, then that's a good sign for expectations of retailers for holiday shopping.
But the short answer is no. Yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble for this. Just a quick aside, Steve.
Boy, when he says it in advance.
I know.
I mean, that's when you know there's a problem.
We're always in trouble, Joe. There's nothing you can do.
Quick aside.
7-second delay, people.
Quick aside. We have important people waiting. Jeopardy last night. Guess how many dead concerts Bill Walton went to following them around? And I'm just wondering how it compares to you.
Well, I'm going to guess Bill Walton is in the 800 to 1,000 range, and I was
Wow.
How much?
850.
Yeah.
Well done, Steve.
I know Bill, and I've gotten to know Bill. Bill is a fantastic person who is just so lit up by...
His mind is gone.
And
No
I'm
doubt.
about
We're
100.
gonna have
I'm about
we're gonna have
100.
Acreage Holdings on. We're going to have a big cannabis guy on.
Yes,
and,
we are.
I'm about 150, Joe. I did about 150
You're
in
about
my day.
150. I was at a few. I was at a few.
When I was at SUNY Buffalo, Joe, and we had the newspaper coming out, I was the editor, so I could decide what 2 weeks we took off. So I planned the 2 weeks around the Grateful Dead spring and fall tours.
It was on Jeopardy, and Alex Trebek and Van is hosting. Wheel of Fortune.
He's
850.
to 1,000.
How many of the 150 do you remember? About half.
What was the? I don't remember. What are you talking about? So I can't even remember what you're talking about.
Acreage Holdings is on, see, but he's not in studio, so there's no reason to rush out here.
I remember all of them.
Okay.
They're all great.
All right. I apologize.
All right, ahead of the Fed's decision on rates, ahead of our discussion about cannabis, let's talk about the trade situation in the markets. Joining us for that is Jeb Henserling. He is the former congressman from Texas who served as Financial Services Committee chairman. Jeb is now executive vice chairman of the Americas at UBS. He's also a senior fellow with the Milken Institute. Also with us, Jim Keenan. He is chief investment officer at BlackRock. And gentlemen, I would have to say in the short term, the big issue the market's got to be thinking about are trade talks with China. We're facing that December 15th deadline. Jeb, you're the expert on things happening in Washington. What do you think is going to happen with this deadline? Will we see additional tariffs put on December 15th?
Well, I kind of doubt it, but we've known for quite a long time we're kind of on a roller coaster ride at night. It's going to have lots of ups and downs. You don't know what's around the next corner. But I think at the end of the ride, everybody's going to be in pretty good shape. So if I'm, Secretary Mnuchin, if I'm Larry Kudlow, I'm whispering into the president's ear, we better get this done. We all know that economic policy typically takes, as long as 9 months to filter through the economy. We know that a lot of CapEx checkbooks have closed over the trade anxiety. So I still think that odds very much favor a starter deal. If the president thinks that he's close, I don't think he will impose the tariffs, but I must admit I've decided not to make my living trying to predict what this president will do. But at the end of the day, I think it's very important. He knows he has to get this done. But I'll tell you, on the other hand, which is what economists love to say, speaking to various people in the administration, I think if necessary, the president's totally prepared to run against China.
That would be my guess, too, because Larry Kudlow and Mnuchin may be whispering in his ear on one. Peter Navarro is going to be whispering in the other direction. And by the way, I think President Trump himself thinks that this is an unfair trade situation. So he probably leans towards that side of the fence in terms of where he comes down.
Well, of course he believes that. But again, this is just phase one of what he needs to accomplish. On the other hand,
But he's got to get something in phase one, right?
I believe so. On the other hand, if I'm sitting there in China, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not going to get a better deal from this guy if he gets reelected, because then it's totally Donald Trump unplugged. And if the Democrats go hard left with Senator Warren, I might even get a worse deal. So I have to be calculating that, and we know that growth in China...
We're still talking about a baby deal.
I think so. I think right now...
No, but in terms of the calculus, you're talking about a baby. This isn't like I want to get through these other issues with China ahead of the election at all.
Jim, can I just ask you, initially, when President Trump decided to take on China, I thought that it took... I didn't think it was done for political reasons, and I thought he did it at great peril because he had an economy going because of tax cuts and deregulation. He had a market going, and I thought that he was doing it because he really believed we need to do this, and it was his own political peril. But now it's playing into his, as you just said, his base probably would like him to continue to take. Did he know in his mind that it was going to become something that it was a positive for him politically all along, or what was the calculus there? Because I used to commend him on, look, you had the nerve to do that when it could have caused a slowdown in the economy, which means you won't get reelected. Do you think he always knew?
When I was in Congress and met with the president, I knew one thing that he was committed to, and that was to get the trade deficit down. Okay. And with China, he felt like, again, we had been getting ripped off for so many years. And it's not just the president. I mean, Democrats, Republicans, everybody has somebody in their district who has had their technology expropriated by the Chinese.
Jim, if Jeb is right, and this is a situation where we don't see additional tariffs put on, what does that mean? How do you kind of figure the calculus based on the idea that we're probably going to have the Fed say that they're not doing anything anytime soon?
Well, I think in the near term, I think the market's already pricing in the expectations that there's not going to be a tariff put on over this weekend. But I think if you just take a step back, you're dealing with two economies now that have grown at scale, that this is a long run where they're going to compete against each other, right? The global growth picture is slower and lower than it has been for the last 30 years. And what you're seeing right now is two economies that are learning how to try to compete with each other. And the rest of the world is trying to figure out how to deal with America and China as they start to deal with each other. So I think it's a lot about jobs, right? And some of the long-term impact is you're still, whether it's regards to tariffs or it's a little bit of deglobalization, right? Some of those, the supply chains, the labor has utilized the global labor force for a long period of time, and that's led to limitations on labor income. And now you're seeing some of that move.
I think it was Steve Leisman, I'm hoping I'm sourcing this correctly, who told me earlier this week that if you strip out China growth, if you are no longer selling to China, the U.S. multinationals don't have any growth over the next several years. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, well, if you look at, just China, but emerging market growth, they've been such a significant portion, over 50% of the global growth over the last decade plus, right? And so there's a level of maturity that they're getting to. And again, that's why the global growth picture looks a little bit lower. There's headwinds associated to the amount of debt in the aggregate system. So it's a different environment that we're moving towards now. And I think, the U.S. is competing for a greater share of that.
And in that environment, you would do what? Buy U.S. stocks, buy international stocks, avoid both?
Well, I would say in the short term, we like international stocks just because of the outperformance of the U.S. I think from a long-term aspect, we have to deal with the fact that where valuations are, what the low growth picture looks like, probably a pressure on sustainable inflation, although we do think we'll see some labor inflation over the course of the next year, aggregate returns are going to be low. So to make real returns or alpha above that, you got to be able to capture some dispersion, right? So because there are going to be winners and losers in this economy, both by regions and or companies.
Jeb, we're out of time, but I can't let you go without asking you about USMCA. What will it mean for the markets if that actually is passed?
Well, I think there was a great fear that we might end up with nothing, even though it is questionable whether or not the president could essentially wipe out NAFTA. So I think it'll be very encouraging. There is some debate what an improvement it is over NAFTA, but I think it'll calm markets. I think anything that says we're not going to have an escalation of a global trade war is going to be good for the markets.
Jeb, Jim, I want to thank you both.
What do you miss the most? What do you miss the most? You can't come up with anything.
No, I can't. Honestly, it's the people. The best part of Congress and the worst part of Congress is the people you work with.
Okay. Yeah, it's best of times, worst of times.
Yeah.
Who's the worst? Just give me a name.
Oh, my, how the time has flown.
All right, never mind. Coming up, a major pot conference kicking off today. We're going to hear from the CEO of Acreage Holdings about the future of the industry, the challenges in banking and funding, and much more. Squawk Box coming right back.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited. Like for reals. None of this, we're so unlimited, but nuh-uh, you can't watch your fave Christmas film endlessly, or dead scroll inspo for tree decorations until 4 in the morning. We wouldn't do that to you.
We have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Ho, ho, ho.
Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data.
At Asda, packs of beer are just £12 each, including 24 bottles of Budweiser, 18 cans of Stella, or 12 bottles of Birra Moretti. Looks like you're hosting this year. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores online, subject to availability. Budweiser 300ml, Stella 440ml, Moretti 330ml. Exclude Scotland Drinkware.
You never know where life will take you, which is why the new BMW 3 Series Touring is perfect if you're all packed up for, or escaping to. It has extensive storage and an automatic tailgate, handy if your hands are full. And it even has an optional intelligent voice assistant to help you at every turn. The new BMW 3 Series Touring. Book your 24-hour test drive today. Test drive subject to status and availability. Participating retailers only.
The Better Network is now on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search the Better Network. That's the BETR Network. And then let us get you better prepared to better enjoy the day in sports. The NFL, college football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Sharpen your edge. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Be better informed. Be better prepared. Search the Better Network. That's BETR.
Cutting for the hit. Scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Shares of Home Depot are falling this morning. The home improvement retailer forecasts 2020 sales growth below analyst estimates. It says its new One Home Depot strategy isn't yet generating as much revenue as expected. And as you can see, stock is down. That's pretty big. Looks big at $1.62. It's really down about 0.75%.
Coming up, pot stocks have burned investors this year, but the industry is looking to turn things around. Jane Wells joins us with a preview of what's next. Jane, good morning.
Hey, Becky. Yeah, in just a few hours, they'll open the doors here in Vegas. 35,000 attendees who have one question. Is 2020 going to be better than 2019? Because 2019 was rough. We talked to two investors putting hundreds of millions at work and the chief corporate officer for a Canadian company when Squawk returns.
Today's big number, $30 billion. That's how big the legal cannabis industry is predicted to be by 2025, according to a report by New Frontier Data. On this day in 2008, Bernie Madoff was arrested and charged for running his infamous Ponzi scheme. How long is his prison sentence? The answer when CNBC Squawk Box continues.
Coach Saban convinced us.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked breads to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express. At Asda, packs of beer are just £12 each, including 24 bottles of Budweiser, 18 cans of Stella, or 12 bottles of Birra Moretti. Looks like you're hosting this year. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores online subject to availability. Budweiser 300ml, Stella 440ml, Moretti 330ml. Exclude Scotland drink aware.
Dear Dad, Merry Christmas. Thank you for always doing everything you could to make this time of year special for us. No one has a Christmas jumper collection quite like yours. Your festive spirit is...
Gingerbread latte with 2 shots and not make whipped cream for Joe.
I hope it snows. I know how you love a white Christmas. All my love, Joe. Heartfelt can happen anywhere with moonpig.com. Download the app and get 20% off when you buy a card and gift this Christmas. Use code Heartfelt20. Exclusions apply.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
Cutting for the hit, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Now the answer to today's Aflac trivia question. On this day in 2008, Bernie Madoff was arrested and charged for running his infamous Ponzi scheme. How long is his prison sentence? The answer, 150 years.
Welcome back to Squawk Box, the largest marijuana conference in the world, kicking off this week. But so far this year, many investors have already seen their investments go up in smoke. Jane Wells joins us now from Las Vegas with more on the challenges that have been facing the industry. Jane.
Hey, yeah, guys, with 35,000 attendees, 1,300 exhibitors, MJ BizCon is the largest marijuana conference, and it's happening at a really, tough time for a whole lot of reasons. Look at this big number. The top 6 publicly traded cannabis companies have lost a combined $25 billion in market value since the end of March. And so everyone from Canadian companies to American investors are hoping it's bottoming.
One thing that's gone wrong is companies are relying on their public currency, their stocks themselves, to raise capital. And as that comes in, obviously it's that much more dilutive every time they need to raise capital.
I think it's fair to say that 2019, and particularly the slow rollout of retail stores in certain provinces in Canada, caught everybody by surprise.
Q3, you had a shock to the industry around vaping and the uncertainty around vaping. And over the last couple weeks, what you've seen are the most well-heeled Canadian LPs hit their numbers and then subsequently announce capital raises.
The clouds will start to part, the sun will start to shine through, the growth will come back with a couple of very important positive catalysts that we're anticipating early in 2020.
I think the launch in the state of Illinois is going to be a big market mover for the entire industry, and that's coming January. Go visit a dispensary, go see a grow, start to really understand the market. And I think investors have, just blindly gone into the sector, so to speak, without really doing granular work. And I think it's a real bottom-up industry. Even though I believe in the macro, there's still going to be a lot of winners and losers.
Now, what you were looking at there was Planet 13. It is a massive, potentially 120,000 square foot marijuana superstore here in Vegas. It does over $5 million in sales a month. It's a winner. It's cash flow positive. Not everyone is. Danny Moses says, do your due diligence. Expect more M&A in 2020, more companies issuing stock to have cash. So choose carefully. He likes Cresco and GTI, Green Thumb Industries. Guys?
Maybe on the wrong. All right, Jane, we've got a special guest. You might want to stay tuned for this. More in the cannabis industry. We're joined by Kevin Murphy, CEO of Acreage Holdings. Do you think the recent action in the SAG is just growing pains, or in the industry in general? Or does it point to it maybe being problematic that we actually get to where there's a federal legalization near term?
I think all markets will ebb and flow.
Is that what
today,
this is?
I think so. Today we're in a 2008 event for cannabis, but we know that there was a 2009, 2010, 2011, and from our vantage point, cannabis being one of the fastest growing industries in the United States today, we will see clearly the backside of this, and I believe at this point there's no better time to invest. How many people legged out of tech in the early 2000s not to participate in the Googles, the Amazons? And so I think...
just with that comparison, they also didn't participate in the Pets.coms and others that disappeared.
No. And that's where you differentiate between a number of the expert players in this space. Clearly, there's a differentiator between the haves and have-nots, for sure.
But, Kevin, it's going to be federally legalized recreational use of cannabis is the end goal. When do you know?
I think there's a number of goals along the way that gets us there. Today, 33 states have a medical program,
right?
Of which 11 have an adult use program. Okay. So we believe the opportunity set in those states is extraordinary.
You say 2020 is going to be a great year. Every Democratic candidate wants to legalize it. Joe Biden is on record saying the same thing he said back in 2010. He said, I believe it's a gateway drug, and legalization is a mistake. They ask him that again, and he says he still has the same feeling. So not every Democrat, the leading Democratic candidate, is not for legalization.
Well, Vice President Biden does advocate for states' rights, as does the President of the United States.
So he's talking about federal, just the federal one he might oppose, but
Sure.
whatever the states do.
Sure, but what we're really striving for is federal permissibility, making it okay to utilize the plan in the states where it's legal. And today it's 33 states, and the opportunity set there is quite extraordinary.
Federal's a big deal, though, because you can't do the banking, interstate banking, if it's not
Well,
federally.
federal is a big deal, but I can look at it quite differently and say it gives my company a huge advantage now that a lot of the larger consumer product players can't be in it today, which gives me the opportunity to grow acreage, to be ultimately, when it is federally legal, to be a global dominant player alongside canopy growth.
Here's the other issue with not being federally approved, and that is that there is not federal oversight and regulation. We've spoken with Scott Gottlieb, the former head of the FDA, about that. I think there are questions about what you can really trust with these things, because lots of tests have shown that the amount of CBD or the amount of marijuana or THC in any of these products is not always as advertised, and there's not federal
And
oversight.
that needs to change. I, for one, believe that we have to really create more predictable, dosable product offerings for people that can rely on what they're using. And that's where I think descheduling or rescheduling this drug. Today it's a narcotic, a Schedule I drug with no testing. And from our vantage point, that has to change for sure and really bring to light what really the majority of this country believe. And they believe that this plant should be available for adult use, and more than 90% of this country believes it has medicinal value.
When you have we have on the screen here cannabis and banking. When you talk to CEOs of banks about working with you in this industry, what do they tell you?
We'd love to have the opportunity to bank you and the rest of your colleagues. That's what I'm hearing. But I believe safe banking is around the corner.
Right.
I truly believe that there are three major issues why safe banking needs to be available. Number one, it takes people out of harm's way. People are at risk transacting in a cash business.
You still think it's a cash business?
Pardon?
It's still a cash business.
It is predominantly. We are afforded the opportunity to use debit cards and other forms of payment, but the smaller players don't have that advantage. And from our vantage point, it's unfortunate. There's no reason why one would have to pay their taxes with truckloads of cash. It just doesn't make sense. And if you want to fuel an illicit business, make it a cash business. Let's not make it a cash business, tax it appropriately, and account for those taxes. That's what we're striving for.
Those numbers on the stocks, that's more than ebb and flow, but maybe it has to do with the euphoria that was in the marketplace pre-2019. It doesn't necessarily mean that the overall story has changed down the road.
The overall story hasn't changed.
But then they all were way ahead of themselves.
They may have been, but I'm a believer that they will catch up and they'll surpass that. And so from our vantage point, again, look back to 2008 where you could have bought a number of stocks at their all-time lows and they were either taken out or prospering years later. So we have had huge momentum in 2019 with safe banking in the House, overwhelmingly passing. We've had the MORE Act coming out with very, very positive indications out of Congress. And I think it's just a matter of time.
Can do 100 push-ups, Sorkin, this dude.
Minimum
100. So you give me one of them CBD gummies, I'll say, I'll do it tomorrow.
Oh, no, with CBD, I was only able to do
Then you might do it next week.
No, I was only able to do 40 before that. Now it's 100.
Come on.
No, it's absolutely
you feel
true.
No pain or?
No.
I'd blow off the entire workout if I think. I'll do it next week, maybe.
Brings down inflammation.
That's the THC side of it.
Not the gummies.
Just saying.
Yeah, I get. It's not a big motivation booster, marijuana. Let me just tell you that.
You heard?
I've heard that. I have heard that. I'm here every day, so you can tell that I'm not way in the past. Anyway, thank you.
It's a pleasure. I appreciate it.
100 push-ups, minimum. One sitting, right? Not set, not more than one set.
One time.
Wow. All right, still to come on Squawk Box this morning, FAA Administrator Steve Dixon. He's going to be testifying before Congress today. Before he does, he will join us in a Squawk Box exclusive interview. It's coming up at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Up next, though, he is the only Republican to say that he will vote no on the USMCA deal. Senator Pat Toomey will tell us why right after this break.
At Asda, packs of beer are just £12 each, including 24 bottles of Budweiser, 18 cans of Stella, or 12 bottles of Birra Moretti. Looks like you're hosting this year. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores and lines subject to availability. Budweiser 300ml, Stella 440ml, Moretti 330ml. Exclude Scotland Drinkaware.
Did you know BT's business broadband comes with an always connected guarantee?
Always connected? I can't guarantee that. Nobody can.
BT can.
No, it's impossible. What if a squirrel bites through your cable?
That's when the 4G backup kicks in.
4G backup?
Yup.
Well, squirrels can't bite through 4G.
Exactly.
BT Business Broadband with the always connected, squirrel-proof guarantee. BT, beyond limits. Subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
The trade front is busy right now. The United States and China are taking steps to delay tariffs set to go into effect on Sunday. In the meantime, House lawmakers plan to take up President Trump's signature trade deal to date, a renegotiated NAFTA known as USMCA. Kayla Tausche joins us right now from Washington. And Kayla, I guess the biggest questions are what's happening with the China trade talks right now?
Well, that is the big question, Becky, and all is quiet on that front for now with just days before that deadline. USMCA is being seen as a sort of proxy for the China deal and a sign to the Chinese that the U.S. can successfully negotiate a trade deal. But now it's up to Congress to pass that. The House will vote next week. The Senate, according to Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, will not vote before a holiday recess. Some Senate Republicans raising concerns about the union-friendly nature of the deal, like Senator John Cornyn and Senator Pat Toomey. McConnell says Senate will spend its remaining time this year on funding issues instead. Both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue hailing the USMCA as a win for the U.S. economy, though. Here's President Trump just last night.
In addition to replacing NAFTA, I've taken the toughest ever action against China's trade abuses. They want to make a deal so badly. And we're doing well with the deal, but they want to make a deal. Please make a deal. We don't want to pay tariffs anymore. Please, please.
Just 4 days until those new tariffs would kick in, Wendy Cutler, the former top U.S. trade negotiator, telling a Chinese business conference she believes the Sunday deadline for a deal will be missed. U.S. officials have suggested the tariffs are on until they're not, but they also say any sign of progress could at this point warrant shelving them. Becky?
All right, Kayla, thank you very much.
Okay, let's continue this trade discussion. The USMCA trade pact could be up for a vote as soon as next week. And joining us right now is Senator Pat Toomey, the only Republican senator who has announced thus far that he plans to vote no on the bill. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You are an outlier on this, at least at the moment. Tell us why.
Yeah, I hate to be the skunk at the garden party, but I think the actual substance of the agreement matters. And if you look at what they did, what they set out to do with NAFTA, and what they did, in fact, with USMCA, is they've passed an agreement that's meant to restrict trade. That was the idea, right? NAFTA is a free trade agreement. There are 0 tariffs on manufactured goods, all of manufactured goods, 0 tariffs on 97% of agricultural goods. So you had this free, fair, reciprocal trade agreement with no tariffs that had resulted in quintupling of American exports to Mexico, Pennsylvania exports to Mexico as well. And that was not acceptable to the administration because we nevertheless have a trade deficit with Mexico. And so they've gone through this whole process of really restricting the ability to trade. So in my view, we shouldn't be going backwards. It was perfectly fine to do some of the updating and modernization that was necessary and appropriate. That's fine. But we shouldn't have put an expiration date on this thing. We shouldn't have put all the auto rules that are meant to limit Mexican auto sales. And we should have preserved the mechanism that allows negotiations to be arbitrated outside of a court system. So, in my view, we shouldn't be going backwards on trade. We should be going forward.
You're the only one, at least publicly on the record right now, Republican that is, who's planning to vote against this. Do you know of others?
I know of many Republican senators who have significant concerns. I don't know how people are going to vote in the end. And let's be honest, there's a lot of reasons one might vote for or against a particular trade agreement for a particular president at a particular moment. I'm simply saying the substance of this agreement is meant to limit trade, and I'm in favor of expanding trade, and so it moves in the wrong direction.
Do you have any concerns that if USMCA is not passed, that NAFTA at some point could be ripped up, as President Trump had threatened to do in the past?
So, first of all, the president has no legal authority to unilaterally repeal any law, and NAFTA is enacted through legislation. So the president doesn't have the authority to do that, and we shouldn't be cowed into voting for an agreement that diminishes trade based on a threat to do something the president doesn't have the authority to do.
But, Senator, it sounds from your last answer when we were talking about whether there were others like you who might be thinking about voting against this, that you're suggesting they are being cowed.
No, not necessarily. There could be any number of reasons, and I'm not going to speculate about the motivations of my colleagues, which I assume are good motivations. And it could include just a different interpretation of the agreement itself. I'm simply saying that, this is a big deal, and people could have many different factors in mind.
Hey, Senator, so let's say China. Let's just shift gears quickly. Right. China agrees to a first deal. We start making progress on a second deal. They start saying, you know what, we're going to come into the 21st century. We're going to stop doing a lot of this stuff with IP. All these things that we've wanted for so long start happening. You've been against tariffs all along in the whole approach to what's going on. Would you say, you know what, I was wrong. I'm glad we did this.
I have to correct you, Joe, because I have not. I have put China in a separate category because I recognize the behavior is different, the scale of the economy is different, and to my mind, one of the most important things is the geopolitics are totally different.
Were you for the tariffs finally then?
I've been in favor of the president confronting China. I've always been a little bit torn, frankly, by the use of the tariffs because we pay a price for that. But I've acknowledged that it was right to confront China, and I certainly hope the scenario you lay out is exactly what happens.
Yeah, I was laying out. I don't know what the chances of that are.
I don't know either, but that would be the desired outcome.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people that the default answer is, well, I should have gone with our allies. We should have done it. It's just, the same crap from 25 years. And that's their default position, which is just
And I have not
crap.
been second-guessing the president about tactics here. There's, reasonable people can disagree. Right. But the confrontation was necessary. Mexico is very, very different.
Okay. Can you explain that, though, Senator, though, for the audience, to the extent that you have that view, that you make a distinction between the situation in Mexico and the situation in China? Because
Mexico is a medium-sized country with a small economy, a poor country that's still developing, and the only competitive advantage they have is lower-cost labor. And as a result of that, there's one sector, the auto sector, in which they've been successfully able to export products to the United States. We've got a trade deficit with Mexico. Who cares? It doesn't matter. I don't know any reputable economists who think that's a problem. China is very different. One, the behavior they engage in, systematic theft of our intellectual property, is a totally different kind of problem. Also, I'm concerned about their geopolitical ambitions. I think the Chinese want to establish hegemony, certainly in Asia and the Western Pacific, and probably beyond that. It's an authoritarian regime that's extremely repressive, increasingly so, and they'd like to export a world order that serves them and not us. So China's just a totally different category.
Senator, always good to see you. Happy holidays.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, secret sign. A secret sign, the markets could go higher. Mike Santoli brings us a look at one index that could mean some green arrows, further green arrows for equities. Squawk Box coming right back.
At Asda, packs of beer are just £12 each, including 24 bottles of Budweiser, 18 cans of Stella, or 12 bottles of Birra Moretti. Looks like you're hosting this year. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores and lines subject to availability. Budweiser 300ml, Stella 440ml, Moretti 330ml. Exclude Scotland Drinkaware.
In the stock market and in life, everything can change from 1 minute to the next. Be the first to hear the latest money news and market trends with CNBC on TuneIn. Wherever your day takes you, listen to CNBC's full slate of programming, including shows like Fast Money, Squawk Box, and Mad Money with Jim Cramer. And when the next big business story breaks, CNBC lets you know with live updates and commentary. At the office, at home, or on the go. Search CNBC on TuneIn to listen. Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
The swagger of a perfect dunk, the rush of a three made from all the way downtown, the adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Along the goal line, scores! And tucks it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
Hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
And a move, and a shot,
from regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Let's get to Mike Santoli with a look at what could drive markets even higher. Is it really a secret index, Mike? I want to hear about it.
I wouldn't say that the commodity index, the Thomson Reuters Commodity Index, CRB, is a secret, but it's not one that we look at typically all the time, every day. In fact, there's an equal-weighted version of this that actually looks like it's on the move a little bit more. But what's interesting about this is you had this very important low that in late summer, we had this, of course, deflation, recession fear. That really had a crescendo in August, and then another good low in October, and it's starting to run again. Now, within this, you have crude oil near the top of its range. Copper is starting to run again. So it seems as if there's a little bit of a reflation story happening in there. It's like a lot of these kind of macro indicators indicators of cyclical strength. They've had a very strong move. Now they're kind of settling around the highs, trying to figure out if this is going to be something sustainable. Of course, the flip side of the commodities move is the U.S. dollar index has faltered off its highs. It's certainly not broke down. It was in a range for most of the year, but this move starting in early October is somewhat the kind of obverse of what was happening in commodities. And so all this suggests perhaps we're in a reflation mode, and the markets are trying to hint that we do have maybe a higher metabolism type global economy coming on the way next year, guys.
Hey, Mike, you're talking about commodities, so sorry to kind of spring this on you.
Yeah.
But what about this whole idea of what happens to oil prices over the longer term? We've got Chevron CEO Michael Wirth, who's going to be joining us a little later. They're writing down a lot of their investments because they think global oil prices are not going to be as high as they had previously thought.
Yeah, I think that's been an overhang on crude oil and on the energy stocks for a very long time. So what we have here is, WTI crude shuttling up towards $60. It's really just the top of a multi-month range. It's not at all breaking out. And then longer term, we just don't know what the next cycle looks like. I think that those two things are not incompatible. In the short term, it seems like we're going to have to use more of it. Longer term, these are not necessarily high return assets.
Hey, Mike, did Barron's ever write about peak oil? I mean,
I'm sure.
I mean, was it ever on the cover? Do you remember that? I mean, you lived,
and maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, you lived through all that too. Has any Malthusian bet ever paid off? There's been some famous ones, and things keep getting cheaper and more abundant.
Exactly. So it's not a negative story necessarily.
No.
At this point, that commodities in real terms have gone nothing but down for
just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The younger generation, the dire warnings usually don't necessarily pan out.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you. Good to see you. When we come back, Citi Private Bank out with its 2020 outlook for the markets, and it is brighter than many had expected. Chief Investment Officer David Balin will join us right after this break. He's got the highlights of that report. Also, check out the futures. A few green arrows. Dow futures up by about 8 points right now. S&P futures up by 5. The NASDAQ up by 20. Squawk Box will be right back.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You'll get interviews, original content, and behind-the-scenes access. Look for us on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. And subscribe to Squawk Pod today.
Can you customize the S&P 500 to meet your...
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Then it was time for glow-in-the-dark mini-golf. I got a hole-in-one. Well, 3. I'm a bit rusty, okay? There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited. Like for reals. None of this, we're so unlimited. But nuh-uh, you can't watch your fave Christmas film endlessly. Or dead scroll inspo for tree decorations until 4 in the morning. We wouldn't do that to you.
We have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Ho, ho, ho.
Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data.
You never know where life will take you, which is why the new BMW 3 Series Touring is perfect if you're all packed up for, or escaping to. It has extensive storage and an automatic tailgate, handy if your hands are full. And it even has an optional intelligent voice assistant to help you at every turn. The new BMW 3 Series Touring. Book your 24-hour test drive today. Test drive subject to status and availability. Participating retailers only.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
We're a little more than 2 weeks away from the last trading day of 2019, and so far the S&P 500 has gained almost, can't be right, 25%. Let's find out how much further this bull can run into 2020. For that, let's bring in David Balin, Chief Investment Officer at Citi Private Bank. He's unveiling his outlook for the new year. Excited to hear about your outlook. Does it imply multiples stay the same because of low interest rates, so it's earnings driven? What can we get more gains?
Yeah, we can definitely get more gains in 2020, and principally because of, like what you said, earnings. It's not going to be multiple expansion. We're going to be in this sort of trading range for rates. Next year we expect the 10-year to go up to potentially 2.25. But the story is going to be earnings. We think that earnings can be up both globally and in the United States by about 7% or even more. And the reason is because manufacturers are manufacturing what they need for consumer demand. In the United States, in Europe, even in Germany, all through Asia, consumer demand has stayed strong. And really what we're seeing now is the need for that manufacturers to fill the supply line.
Resupply everything.
That's exactly right. And when you take a look at the data, the gaps are very significant. This is a real underperformance on the manufacturing sector.
Everywhere?
Everywhere. And that is the story, I think, that is underappreciated that we've seen in all of the information. So this year has been underwhelming for earnings, right? The markets have done well principally because of the fact that we started expecting that the Fed was not going to support the markets. The Fed has done a good job supporting markets and making the cuts, and those cuts have been global.
So there's
what's
nothing
supporting.
to this idea that people were trying to buy things and export them ahead of any potential trade wars coming down?
That's absolutely true. But when you look at all of that data, that's the anomaly. Of course, people are going to buy the day before tariffs are going to go up. But tariffs have been in place now for a year and change, and that's not the story anymore. So that's the underlying story. And all of what happens in manufacturing, even though it's a small percentage of the economy, ripples through to the service sectors and other sectors. And you saw that in the employment reports, even on Friday. You can't pick one data point, but the fact is that things are going to be a little bit brighter than people expect, and that could last for a very long time into 2020.
Very long time into 2020. What, long enough to last into 2021?
Yes, long enough to last into 2021. When you look at what the real risks are a major escalation in tariffs, a major bond problem somewhere in the world that is completely unanticipated right now. But we don't see areas of the market that are overheated. So let's take a look, for example, at housing. Right now, housing is running at half the rate it was in 2007 when it was overheated. It's not an overheated sector. And without overheated sectors, you don't have an immediate and imminent reason for a recession. Everyone this year, all of our clients have been sitting on the sidelines raising cash and have missed what is a 16% year for an average portfolio at Citi Private Bank. And next year, maybe it's going to be up, let's say, as I said, 7 or 8%. But, if we're going to be entering recession, better to enter it with $108 rather than $100. And that's really what we're telling everybody right now.
So Howard Marks, I saw this morning, Market Watch. Stock market will breathe a huge sigh of relief if President Trump is reelected in 2020. Do you agree with that? And do you think there's risk there if he's not reelected?
There really are risks regardless of the outcome of the election. I think that, the president in an unfettered second term may do more on the trade front that could be damaging. We just don't know. That will really be determined this year based on whether or not he comes to any agreement whatsoever with China.
He said this on CNBC, actually, is what Howard Marks made those comments at the Goldman Sachs Financial Services Conference in New York. So he said it yesterday. So that was CNBC, or he said it. So, So you see risk either way, then?
Yeah, I see risk. We're going to go through some type of major changes in that.
Well, let's say it's not Trump.
Right. It really depends upon.
Okay, let's say it's Bernie Sanders.
Right. Well, it's interesting. We just heard about the oil markets, right? And we just wrote about this. Ironically, if Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders were to be elected, and there were restrictions actually on oil production in the United States, ironically, the oil markets and oil stocks could do materially better than people expect.
All right. Well, that's a small part of
but one that's been a real underperformer for the S&P.